Thanks for watching live or listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday lunch show. Not for us, actually. This is a pre-recording, we have to say, but we're going to be putting it out at our usual time of 2:30. Regular viewers will notice that I am joined not only by our amazing guest, Kacey De Groot, today, but we also have a return of Jen Hurst. Now, Jen isn't just come back because she liked it so much that she wants to something else. I'm pleased to say that myself and Jen will now be co-hosts of the Saturday show. So, Jen, thank you so much for joining me on board. It'll be amazing. And what better way to start our new show with Kacey. Kacey, thank you so much for joining us. Kacey is an absolutely incredible drama teacher and an amazing advocate for all things NEU and everything to do with the rights of us as teachers as well. From what I understand from my notes, Kacey, my tablet has just gone to sleep. Kacey, could you tell us which position you are running for the NEU election, please?
Yes, so I'm standing for Deputy General Secretary, the DGS, which is kind of, I suppose, second in command. It's not quite like that. We've got a General Secretary who's brilliant, Daniel Kabedi, and this is an elected Deputy General Secretary underneath that role. So it's a staff leading role. It's about leading and driving the staff of the union, who are amazing, to basically deliver the things that teachers and educators, because we're an educators union, we also have support staff and almost anybody who works in school, really. And it's about driving them to get delivered the things that we ask for at conference.
Thank you for that. And sorry, yeah, I was hoping to read that all myself, but unfortunately my tablet just decided not to work, and now it's gone back to work again. So Kacey, you've been the drama teacher since 2005. You absolutely love pedagogy. I think we both do, Jen and I absolutely love pedagogy, and Kacey's absolutely passionate about protecting the arts in the curriculum. For those who have been watching and have known over the last decade or so, you know, we all know that keeping arts alive in the curriculum is something that we're all really care about. So Kacey mentioned her work with her trade union and what she's running for in terms of Deputy General Secretary, and more importantly as well, that Kacey has served on the executive board for 5 years as an LGBT plus seat holder. And I understand, obviously, you want to make the step up now into number 2, but not only fighting for the rights of all members of your trade union, including pay and funding for educators, you also want to be a role model and an advocate for other trans teachers out there in our profession, and kind of create that visibility for them as well. So thank you ever so much again for joining us. Thank you. Now, before we start the show, I have a word from our wonderful sponsors. And as always, that's always the case, you know, when you have everything set up and then technology lets them. Here we are. So I have a wonderful word from our wonderful sponsors. We'd like to start with Hatchet Learning. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hatchetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles. Jen, over to you.
Oh, thank you again for joining us, Kacey. And we're really excited to learn more about you and your journey and what's going to be happening in the near future. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and drama? What drew you to drama teaching?
So I guess what drew me to drama teaching was theatre. I think, do you know when you do your teacher training and you really think about your education, and that really made me think about the education that I had, because I'm quite old. I'm like 54. I was the sort of last year. I didn't do GCSEs. I did 16 plus, and it was the last year of the old O levels and CSEs, as they were called in those days. So I had these. My sort of GCSE level qualifications. I got both sets. I got CSEs and O level certificates for mine. But I went to an all boys school. So as a trans woman, that was like, you know, I've always been trans. So that was a pretty much a disaster. But the kind of arts teaching at my school, just wasn't really what it could have been. You know, I think at the time it was different. So I didn't get to do drama at school, apart from a very short period of time in year 7 when I had this form tutor who was like brilliant. So I kind of forgot all about it, because you take the subjects that are in front of you, and, you know, I kind of failed my A levels. And when I kind of thought about what I really loved, I thought back to that year 7 experience of performing, really just in a kind of house assembly way that we used to do. And I kind of moved towards theatre, you know, youth theatre. And then I kind of started my degree. I had to do an access course first. And when I left university, I wanted to be a theatre maker. Like, I never wanted to be a professional actor. I wanted to make my own small scale theatre. And that kind of life, workshopping and performing and getting money, the funding for that is also, you know, always very, very difficult. Always has been, always will be. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I could train to be a teacher. That would be really good, because then I could do supply teaching for like 2 days a week and get like a really good daily rate, in the days when supply teaching was actually paid properly. And there were supply teachers, you know, kind of being looked after with terms and conditions. So that was why I did my PGCE. I thought, I'm going to use this to help me do better workshop work as a kind of theatre practitioner. But as soon as I did it, I loved it. I kind of realised that all of like what I needed as like an artist and an artistic person, and kind of making my own art, actually, you can get that from the kids. It might not be the same as you do it, but it's the joy, it's the buzz, it's kind of what it's all about, really. And I've just loved teaching since, and I've, never stopped. So yeah,
That's fantastic. Great to hear about the kind of career planning, really kind of genuine reasons for going into it, because I think it's really important to be honest about what leads you to start that journey, but also so nice that you were able to recognise how much you got for yourself from being in the classroom and decided to do it full time. So that's fascinating. I love also the fact that you started out in theatre, kind of creating theatre yourself, right up my street. I love that. So it's lovely that you ended up, you know, weaving your way into a full-time role. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey you've had in schools and a little bit about your career?
So I think, like, when I did the PGCE in kind of 2004, you know, we used to talk a lot, because drama, again, it was in the days of the national curriculum, you know, kind of the literary strategy, the national literary strategy, and all of those documents. And drama was the only subject that didn't have its own national curriculum. We used to talk about it a lot on the PGCE, because that's all we talked about, which I loved. We just immersed ourselves in kind of theatre and pedagogy, and like that kind of, you know, the union of those two sets that was like really interesting. And we sort of, you know, I used to think, I like not having a national curriculum in drama, because we could be like far more creative. I used to look at other subjects where they were, you know, you must teach this and this and this. And it was all very, you know, it kind of stifled the creativity of being an educator and being a teacher. So I quite like the idea that we could be a little bit subversive with drama, and we could like cross over a bit, and we could do a bit of literacy in there, but we could also be doing the speaking and listening elements from English. And actually, I didn't understand at the time how lucky I was in those 5 years to actually have that joyfulness in the teaching, because again, I think what's kind of common with drama then, and I don't think it's much difference now, I was appointed as an NQT to be the only drama teacher in quite a large secondary school. So because again, drama wasn't a national curriculum subject, so they kind of got away with only giving the kids 1 hour a fortnight of drama in Key Stage 3. So my timetable was bonkers. I had about 7 hours of year 7s over 2 weeks. I had like 8 year 8 classes, 8 year 9 classes, which again was so hard because you know, over one half term, sometimes I would see the kids for 2 hours, and then I'm like expected to write big reports for them. I'm like, I don't know their names, help me. and the workload, all of that workload about reports and things was still there. But I also had all the responsibility for the GCSE classes and the A-level classes. And I was a one-man band then, because I was still Mr. De Groot. But I still loved it. I loved that school. And I was there for about 4 years. And I did change the department. And I had some amazing colleagues in music as well. And we just used to do some brilliantly creative shows, 2 shows a year. And it was amazing. It was like a really beautiful job. But the head in that school, when I sort of said, look, I can do this and this and this, I can't do all of them at the same time, and I tried to give the head solutions and said, well, perhaps we could do this different, maybe that could happen. But basically he wanted it all. And I was like, I can't be that person. And I literally, on the drive home, when I thought, I'm going to have to look for another job, and my old PGCE mentor rang from one of my first placement schools and said, you looking for a job? I said, yes, I am. So I went back to one of my placement schools, which was kind of, the first school was quite a rural, quite middle class comprehensive, 11 to 18, but back to the school I'm at now, which was a Coventry school. And with the challenges of that, like very, very different mix of kids. And I struggled at first because I was used to this kind of, I suppose, like your middle class kids who do what the teacher tells them, and you sort of have little bits of behaviour management. And then I went back to a school where actually, if your teaching isn't there, your teaching can be there, but actually it's about your relationship building with them, and they're not just going to respect you just because you tell them to stop talking. So with the kind of relationship building, I've loved the place I'm at now, and I've been there since 2010.
Wow.
That's also the school I transitioned at in 2018. And I love the place. I love the kids. I was talking to a colleague today. The kids at my school now are, you're making a difference to them, because what they come to you with, and how they're kind of their understanding of the world. That you are making a difference, but they also like good teaching, and they're teachable. So it's a kind of, you're putting value on them. They're always hilariously entertaining in characters, even when they're being absolute pain. And I think it's a really great job.
Lovely. Thank you for all of that. Obviously, we want to travel forwards in this conversation, but love what you mentioned about the PGC tutor. You said mentor, kind of checking back in with you. That resonated with me. Those early years when they come back and see how you're doing, that was really familiar for me. So that gave me a nice memory. And also kind of segues really nicely into the next point that I wanted to touch on with you, just briefly on whether you feel things have changed that much, because you mentioned that experience of that first school, your first school, where you had all of these things to deliver in a single person department. Obviously you're really happy in your school where you are now. You've been there for a considerably long time, so congratulations. It's not easy necessarily to stay in one school for that length of time, but how do you think things have changed in arts provision and in education over time? Has it changed much? Is it quite similar?
It's It's completely different. You know, I know a lot of art subjects are suffering really. I think if I try and work out, I don't know really where it's happened, because we can look at things like the EBAC, go, okay, that's why. But, you know, in terms of A-level drama, I think, you know, it's something like 50% less kids are taking A-level drama now than they were, you know, and it just makes me really sad. And again, you know, we don't have a year 12 or 13 in my school at the moment, and we're like really pushing to build that back again. And my daughter actually goes to my school, and she had to go to another school in Coventry, like with a thriving drama department, and they have to roll together their years in 12s and 13s into one class. So they teach BTEC and they have the year 12s and 13s together. And again, you know, it's really sad. How's it happened? I think there has been a devaluing of art subjects, which has come from, I think, the talk of EBAC, even if kids aren't choosing EBAC. Of course, like there's so much pressure on schools to achieve with the maths, English, and science. You know, that those subjects, they have more hours towards those subjects, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I understand, but the art subjects quite often are the road into some of those skills, particularly in terms of language, you know, and the oracy, which is so. I'm glad that oracy is making a big, you know, kind of comeback again. Like, it's always been there, hasn't it? Speaking and listening, but understanding that, you know, when our kids are able to speak and present themselves and kind of communicate in that way, that actually that is how they can change the world. And you know, sometimes I wonder if they don't really want them to be able to change the world. You know, they just want them to be compliant and do what they're told. And, you know, but I don't know, that's the negative side of me. But you know, there's sort of the breadth in the curriculum seems to have shifted. You know, the creativity, and at a time, you know, I remember the TED talk from Ken Robinson, you know, rest his soul, and, you know, where he talks about creativity being the skill for the future. Because again, you know, when I was at school, the careers at my school, everybody was like tried to encourage to go and do an engineering apprenticeship. And like, yeah, great, that was fine. I mean, Coventry was a city of engineering. How many of those places are still open now? I don't think any of them. You had Massey Ferguson, you had the Triumph Standard Factory. They're all gone. None of them are in Coventry anymore. So yes, of course, like there's still work in kind of manufacturing and technician, but those jobs aren't there anymore, not in the same way. So, you know, really, the arts, I think, is the place where we are we're future-proofing the kids and teaching them outside of the box, in effect, so they are ready for change and kind of, you know, resilience and unpredictableness.
Yeah,
how unpredictable is the world? It's like, crikey.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and thank you for name checking Sir Ken Robinson. I mean, I saw Change of the Paradigm. That TED Talk was day one of my PGCE.
Yeah.
As soon as I started the program, my course leader, Helen Tierney at the time, she said, right, put it on. And that was like, that's it, go. You know, that was almost like the start, like that was the all we needed to go in and say, right, go and do it, because, you know, Ken was making some incredibly valid points there. And even now, I always go back to that change in the paradigm speech, because I always look at where we are as an arts, if you will, our arts sector. How far have we progressed towards his vision?
Yeah.
How far have we gone away from it? So yeah,
and that's what I was going to say. Like, you know, we haven't, have we? Like when I did the PGC in 2005, it was like this was our aspiration, and then that's the direction we were moving in. Now it seems to be like we've like reversed so far away from it that I would love to be back at that starting point again with the optimism. But, you know, let's be optimistic, because I think we can change it, and we will change it.
We will. We will. Just before we go, and I want to make another shout out to one of our sponsors, Chalk and Talk podcast. If you're looking for another great education podcast, then do check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stoke. Anna is a passionate advocate for evidence-based maths education for students of all ages. On her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods to how-to guides for teaching maths, tips for evaluating research show claims. She really brings on the top-notch guests on her show, educators, researchers, policymakers, and she discusses issues that directly impact teachers and students. Chalk and Talk is for anyone interested in education. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. So I think a lot of the questions I was going to ask you, actually, you both covered in great terms, more to the point of the argument of arts being non-essential. Or less academic. Where did that begin? And I think it's probably fair to say the EBAC progress rate was probably the start of a lot of that. You've mentioned about advocating for the arts in the curriculum and what it does in terms of skills. The fact that, you know, when you were training or when you're in education, it was engineering, which was the big focus. I'm from Lincoln, so, you know, we, again, very industrial town as well. We had a big factory where a lot of my friends would go off and get their apprenticeships, but that's no longer there anymore. But talking about positivity, could you mention any examples in your career so far, Kacey, where you've seen a truly transformative effect? Do you have any almost like case studies of not only your teaching, but you mentioned you work with some great music teachers. So have you seen any transformative effects of what the arts have actually done to your students?
Do you know, like, I just see it all the time. I'm tired this week. I think we all are. Like, this week, I think 4 weeks into a long term, it kind of like hits you. That's the point, because you have all that energy at the start. The kids do as well. And in our school today, I was talking to a deputy head, and she's saying the behaviour's just gone, because all of a sudden the kids have they've had enough of being good for 3 weeks with their fresh start, and they're tired, and they're like, we've still got 4 weeks to go. But we had our year 6 parents evening this week, and we did a bit of a change to what we normally do, because we've changed our school show. We normally do our school show at Christmas, and we're now doing it in the summer term. So instead of like what we normally do, we normally have like an open rehearsal for parents, year 6 prospective parents, to come and watch. So we have all of our kind of drama-y kids and music kids, you know, musical theatre kids. And they will be rehearsing big numbers with the dance choreography and singing and doing a bit of acting. And the parents just sort of walk through, and we use it. It's literally an open rehearsal. Well, because we don't have the school show this year, we're like, well, what shall we do? I said, right, let's just get some of our year 8s doing some of the mime work they do. And we didn't rehearse it, but the kids who wanted to stay were some of the most least likely kids to be staying after school, who stayed behind and wanted to show parents mime work. And like, they were amazing. So on that particular day, two days before, I had a member of staff bring me a student, and they said, she's new to the school, she doesn't turn up very much, and she's terrified about coming to drama. Will she, you know, I said I'd come along with her, and I said, don't worry about it. She's year 8, sorry. I said, look, just work with it. You don't have to, just be there, support, watch. And within 10 minutes, she's doing the work with them. She's miming. She's doing like a heavy bag, you know, miming that a bag is really heavy when it's just light, and all of this kind of stuff. Now, when I said at the end, who'd like to come along for parents' evening and do some demonstrating of the mime? She's there. Yes, I'd like to come. Mm-hmm. And then she's in school, after school. She's found it really difficult to come to school. And then she's in school miming for parents. And some of the other teachers who work in our SEND department, like, what? She's here after, what's she doing? Can't get her into school. And then she's in school doing it. And it was absolutely joyful to watch her. But, you know, how that will impact her in the future, I don't know. But we've got, you know, there's so many kids that, you know, we took through A level, and they were the kids who were quite often really naughty kids in year 8. And they would sort of, you know, they would laugh about it afterwards in sixth form. I'm still friends with a lot of my old students as well. I say to them, look, as soon as you're over 18, as soon as you've left, you can request me or add me, and so I keep in touch with a lot of them. And the ones who kind of were never expected to go to university and have been to Warwick University, to the drama department, and got their drama degrees, and you kind of think, and their parents kind of are there for you as well, when they kind of tell you, oh, this was down to you. And of course, like, it wasn't, it was down to them. But it's that privilege, really, that you've watched that growth in them. We've had a lot of students really successful, going on to, we've got a former student in the West End at the moment in a kind of key role. She was one of our brilliant students, and we've got lots of them who've gone off to really, really good drama schools as well. So it's kind of, I think there's the side that I can look at and think, because obviously as a drama teacher, you can sort of see success, can't you? Because if they go into the industry, you're like, brilliant, amazing. But actually, sometimes it's the kids that didn't really speak very much and weren't seen as being clever, but then all of a sudden they can do something stunning in the arts, which just is, again, when we're there to witness it, that's really the privilege, I think.
Fantastic. So nice to hear again about impact that you've had there over the years, and that work that you've been doing to really enrich the lives of young people is, I guess impacting young people is at the heart of any kind of trade union work in education. But it's the other side, isn't it, of what you're doing now. So what is it that kind of led you to move into the world of the trade unions? Tell us about that.
It's a good question. I think I would say most teachers and educators, they're probably told when they start, some old wise owl will say to them, don't step into a school unless you're in a union, because in case people make complaints against you or something, and it's like, oh, it's a bit of an insurance, thing. And I think quite often people do what I used to do. I used to change unions depending on who had the stronger rep, most vociferous rep in the school, and you'd sort of shift around a bit. And I happened to be with the NEU because of the rep at the school when I moved back to my school. But it was 2018 when I suppose the best way to phrase it is I'd been battling my own demons about being trans, and the demons being kind of self-hatred and avoidance of that question and not wanting to deal with that question. So in 2018, when I'd kind of unpicked it and just knew that actually I can't, this is who I am, and I was starting to kind of come to terms with that and go, okay, well, so what? Doesn't make me horrible. I'm like, I can still be a good person. I can still do this. I'm going to transition. It was about making sure that the NEU, my union at the time, would kind of be there if the school were not going to treat me well. That was the sort of thing that made me make that phone call to the sort of the Coventry office, and immediately I was spoken to by still my really good friend Jane Nellist, who was kind of one of the facilities time people, and she said, yes, oh yes, we'll definitely. Why don't we meet up for a coffee? I'll bring my friend Nikki as well, who works for the union. So I went and met with the two of them, and they are absolutely no, NEU is really positive for trans people. And I was contacted then. There was a trans and non-binary educators network, and I was like, head blown. Like, this is like, I mean, again, like some of the listeners might not be aware, but there was the story of Lucy Meadows, who was a trans woman who, content warning for it, took her own life. She was basically hounded out of a job in a primary school by the community, and also by the right-wing press. She was vilified and victimized by them, and they whipped up a storm and controversy around her, and she took her own life. And that was kind of like really reverberating around my head, and like, okay, that's what it might be like. And you couldn't see many trans educators, definitely not in secondary school as well. And it just felt, okay, well, I do need to do it. I am going to trust my school and the community. And then there was this trans and non-binary educators network. I was like, what? And actually, when I went to London and I met that group of people, it was life changing. I've quite often said it was life saving, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. Like, I actually don't. And a lot of those people are still my friends now. I've kind of, one of my best friends was there at that event, and there was probably about 20 of us around a table, and we talked about what the union could do. And based on that work that we did, the NEU created their supporting trans and non-binary educators and supporting trans and non-binary students toolkits, which is still around, and there's still versions of them. Lots changed, but the power of that was amazing. And then there was also, because that section fell under the LGBT plus section of educators, that's also been amazing. And I've understood then, I've kind of got involved with that network, and that's what I kind of ended up. I was on the organising forum for LGBT plus members, and then I was the executive member for all LGBT plus members. So I've kind of watched that movement grow and grow. So I think the last time I stood for election, sort of for that one, which is about 2.5 years ago, we had about 14,000 LGBT plus members, and now it's like 21,000. And the power keeps growing. And I've worked really closely with an amazing colleague, Denise Henry, who's the Black members network. So they use political blackness in the NEU, and she's my counterpart for Black members, and she's also an LGBT queer woman. And we've worked incredibly closely with those two networks and disabled members as well. And just really, I think, just found so much solidarity and support and kind of friends and confidence and empowerment. The union hasn't been just about changing the workplaces, which it also has been about, but it's also been about that journey of acceptance and actually understanding the fight and the need for equality, like, everywhere.
So it's been a pivotal part of your development and your own journey. I'm so glad to hear that you've had that support. You spoke about the network that you found within the NEU, and I'm so glad that you've had that support along the way since 2018, and your voice is such an important one. So to know that you have been able to use that to help you to get to where you are now, 2025, you're going for this really important role. You did touch upon, Kacey, a leadership role that you took along the journey, and now you've reached this point. So kind of what's been the springboard to get you to where you are now, to this point that you're about to go through this big ballot, or in fact, no, it's already happened.
It's pretty close. I mean, if people posted if anybody's listening on Saturday and you have like your ballot paper, it's still on the radiator by the door. If you put a first class stamp on it and you can get it into a post box where there's going to be a collection, it might get there in time. But other than that, it's pretty much done. Yeah.
What is it that got you to this point of saying, right, I'm going to step up for this deputy role?
So that's also a really good question. And I think that's come from the way that the LGBT plus members work.
Right.
It's all about encouraging people to step up and do things. Like, the union is a huge thing. The National Education Union is massive. And it's very easy to just think, well, I'll just take from it. I'll turn up to this event and have a nice social, and then I'll go back to my school again. But that's not how unions work in the best way. They work in the best way when people say, right, I'm going to do something for the union as well. Because the union is all of us. That's how it works. The union should not be people at the top of the union kind of pushing down and saying, okay, we're doing this now, and now we're going here. It should be all of the people on the bottom of the union who actually drive the direction and the momentum and where it goes. And that's what I'm standing to do. So it was kind of like people nudging me, people saying, oh, you turned up then for that event. Would you like to now come to a regional event and like perhaps do something to organize that? Like, yeah, okay then. And then it would be like, yeah, now maybe you could step up to a national role. There's the national organizing forum. You could be on that. Okay. And then it was like, maybe you could be vice chair of the organizing forum. Okay, right. And then it was like, when my predecessor, who was amazing, Annette Price, brilliant person, when they stepped down, because they'd done it for a number of years, it was like, why don't you step up? And I was like, oh, no one will elect me, no one will vote for me. It's like, well, they might do, and I did, and actually no one stood against me. So that was quite nice, actually. So I got the role without having to do a contested election. And then after that, I had contested elections, which I think is good. And I think, so that role I've done for 5 years. And what I've tried to do with that role is to basically challenge the leadership of the union, to the other executive members, and sometimes the staff of the union, because they haven't always delivered what they were supposed to deliver. So a lot of it has been stressful quite often. NEU members, and actually probably I think any union members who go to the national conferences for those unions, and you're in the room when the conference decides to do something, you're like, yes, brilliant, we've moved, thousands of people in this room, we've decided that we're going to do something. And then 12 months later, and it hasn't happened, or it's happened in a way that wasn't what conference wanted it to be. That's been my frustration for 5 years, and it's been fun. We've had lots of wins, and we've moved the movement further. But actually, it felt to me like 5 years is enough to do a role, because I don't want to take the space from somebody else. I want other people to be able to step up, and actually for them to rise. And again, that's how we work. We get people to be reps. We've got overrepresented. LGBT plus members are overrepresented as workplace reps, and that's quite amazing. Because I think we talked, Michael, didn't we, just before, and we talked about how sometimes reps might feel victimized or worried about being victimized. Well, if you're an LGBT plus person, you're also going to be worried about being victimized as well, and kind of that might makes you more vulnerable. So the fact that we're overrepresented as reps is amazing. And again, we've got so many brilliant intersectional networks that we have, like the Black LGBT plus members, disabled LGBT plus members, and we have LGBT plus women, and we also have identity networks as well, like LGBT plus members of faith, which is a beautiful space. Because again, there's loads of Islamophobia with people talking about, oh, Islam doesn't like gay people, or Christians don't like gay people. It's rubbish. We've got loads of people, and those spaces are beautiful when you've got people from about 10 different faiths, all LGBT plus, all educators in a room talking about what they share and how to, and the issues that they have and how they overcome them. Like that's really powerful. So I think it was about stepping up, which is, that I think that's what I've done. I think, well, I've tried for the 5 years to kind of win things through the executive. Now maybe it's time to shift to staff.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It is great to hear the amount of representation within your union, and it's giving that platform for people to be themselves in schools. And the horrific story you mentioned earlier on, I think it just serves a reminder that we've all got to look out for one another. We really do. And then us educators do need to take, sadly, we realistically, we need someone, I think, an outside agency. We expect that to happen, but that's not always the case, if any. So the fact that we're able to galvanize together and look out for one another, and provide those spaces, and for yourself to really spearhead that, in addition to the other aspects of teaching in terms of what we do, is great. If I may, just want to read out another word from our sponsors from AQA, and then we'll move on with the chat. AQA knows teachers are the real experts in the classroom. That's why they work closely with teachers like you to combine your insights with their assessment expertise and create resources, tools, training and guidance that do generally make a difference. They're the UK's most chosen assessment organisation. So chances are you already know their work. And as we head into a new school year, AQA are focused on helping teachers feel supported and ready. If you want to find out more about how they're working with teachers just like yourselves, head over to the website AQA, What We Work With Experts. So I wanted to ask you, Kacey, about you as a trans teacher, I beg your pardon, your experiences when you transitioned in 2018, I believe. How was that for you personally? How did your school environment deal with that? How did you personally? Because for yourself, it's an incredibly brave step, and you mentioned before all of the demons and the things behind that kind of building up, and then you have the courage to go, no, this is me. So what was it like when you did that, and what was the experiences like when that happened?
I always balk at the courage word, because I think it sometimes looks like that from the outside, but I think actually it was just the point that I can't not, like, it didn't feel like a choice. Like, to me, courage feels like, oh yes, I've chosen to do this and it's hard, and it just didn't feel like a choice. But like it actually, at the start, it went amazingly. Like, really, I don't know, could it have gone back? I don't know. Like I kind of, I'm quite dramatic, and I didn't want to sort of tell some of the school and for it to get out. Do you know what I mean? Because it was a big school. We're a big school, like, 1,500 kids. But, well, okay, if I did like a year 8 assembly first, and like they would come out and the word would get around super fast. So I basically recorded them all a video, where I basically, as Mr. De Groot, I spoke to the camera and told them really that I've got something really important to tell them, and how I value teaching them and I love their work. That I do have to share something, and I'm going to be different, when you come back next week. And this took place like about 2 weeks before the end of the summer holiday. So I thought, like, and I'd done it that way. So I thought, right, I don't want to do it like right at the end, so then they like get the shock and then go. I wanted them time to kind of process it for a little bit, and then go away for 6 weeks, and then come back, and hopefully it wouldn't be a sort of a big deal for them. So I did make myself available in the drama studio, and the leadership were really worried. They were like, well, what will happen if kids say horrible things to you? I said, well, look, they might, but I'll be there and I'll talk to them. So the drama studio was swamped, but it was like kids who just wanted to come and say, Miss, that's great. Oh, that's amazing, Miss. Thank you for trusting us and telling us. I was like, that's okay. And then I always tell this story. It's hilarious. I had 2 deputy heads come in, and they were like, one of them was really worried. She's like, I won't name the boy, but they said, he wants to come and see you. And it was like the naughtiest boy in school. I said, yeah, that's okay. Well, no, are you sure? I said, yeah, of course. We tried to say he can talk to you on Monday, but he's adamant. I said, no, bring him in. So like he had 2 of them on either side of him, ready for if he said something, they were going to like hoik him outwards. And he just sort of stood in front of me and went, respect. That was brave. I was like, thank you. And they were like, oh. And I've taught like lots of his siblings as well. And they're brilliant family, hilarious kids to teach. But I always tell them that story and say, yeah, that was your brother. So yeah, that went really well. When I walked in on the Monday, obviously, like, I looked a bit different. And like a lot of the sort of rainbow kids at the front of the school started cheering. I went, oh, no, don't worry. And I was like, oh God, that was like really nervous. And then I went and sat in my office, and I heard sort of shuffled footsteps outside. I was like, hello. And then like a little year 8 came in and went, I just wanted to have a look at you. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. It was the kind of, and I often say, look, I've always been an educator. That's the phrase that we use in the NEU, but that's who I am. I'm an educator. So actually, if I'm trans and I can't change that, and I'm in this job, I'm not going to disappear with it and hide it. I'm actually going to educate people about it as well. So I sort of say, look, you can ask questions. I tell them the questions they don't ask, like private parts. like clues in the name, and no one wants to talk about their private parts, do they? Let's be fair. So yeah, it all went really well. I think where the sort of shift happened is more recently, and it has been gradual, because again, like, we've just ended up with more and more successive governments who are choosing to demonize trans people, and we've got organizations like the EHRC that should be there to protect us that are no longer protecting, and it's not just, like, let's be fair, like, it's not just around trans people, because we've allowed the far right and far right rhetoric, we've allowed that to permeate everywhere. What's happening now, on the streets with rallies and marches and things like that, and the kind of the freedom of speech, which kind of works one way, but it doesn't work a different way. People can say offensive things, but teachers have to be impartial. When we're challenging things like the genocide in Palestine, the language that we use, is like very heavily policed. But at the same time, people are sort of, defending their freedom of speech to say vile things about members of society that, have done nothing wrong. So, that sort of shift has really been felt, like, badly. And it did come to a head last year, where I kind of I had physical health problems as well. Whether it was kind of mental or physical or the mix of the two, it's sometimes hard, isn't it, to work out where it begins or ends and what caused it. But yeah, it's been hard over the last few years, really. But I'm kind of, I'm here stronger than ever, really, and I'm more positive again now. I've had some, again, some space and headspace, and that was again where, quite late in the process, I did declare that I wanted to stand for this role, and that was part of, I think that was sort of part of the end of the healing process, where I was like, right, I need to do that, and I'm kind of ready to lose, because the other candidate's brilliant, and also, she has a lot of support in the union, so it might well be that I lose. I'm standing, really. I want to hopefully increase the turnout for the election, but if I don't win, I'm ready to carry on teaching and to do more different things. So I'll come up with a plan, and we will fight. We'll carry on fighting. Oh,
bless you. I mean, it's always pains to be somewhat optimistic. I mean, there's two amazing candidates that are going through it, but I think for Kacey, what you're standing for and how you are representing your values and your ethics and what you're willing to do in order for the members of your union is absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, you mentioned things have gone, on a downward spiral as of recently, as the political kind of pendulum has shifted one way. Support structures in the I guess the medium and the long term. What kind of support structures would you like to see put in place, not only perhaps in your school, but nationally across the UK? What kind of support structures would you really like, just to keep a robust protection, and just making sure that we don't regress? Sorry, we don't regress further into anything else.
I think that's a really difficult question to answer. I think, I kind of mentioned the very first trans and non-binary roundtable that I went to. A tiny proportion of those people are still in the classroom, a very small number of them. I think probably, out of the 20 or so, probably 2 or 3. And again, a lot of the other members that we've had, a lot of them leave. And I think, again, it's kind of like I was talking to you again before, Mike, where different schools are very different places, and you can have a school that's amazing for LGBT plus teachers and trans kids, but then you can also have a school that's incredibly toxic. And there's not, what I would really love to see is an EHRC that is actually doing its job and is not publicly endorsing transphobia and kind of building transphobia into school practices, because I think school leaders, they want to protect the kids and their staff. I think they value their staff and they want to protect the kids. I know my school do, but my school are also worried about if there's guidance that becomes statutory and they need to follow, like what will they do? Because I think head teachers and school leaders are arguably rightly so, you know, kind of conservative with a small c, and they don't want to really rock the boat. And they kind of, you know, I understand that because they have boards of governors and they have, like, you know, many parents to answer to, and Ofsted and DFEs and things like that. So, you know, I think there needs to be a sensible argument now and protections for those teachers, because again, you know, you can't be what you can't see. It's just, I think, such a brilliant thing. If we want diversity in the educators that we have in front of children, we kind of need to protect them, and we also need to kind of find the ways to build them so people choose the profession and actually don't turn away from the profession thinking, oh no, you know, that's not the profession for me with my identity. Actually, we want to show them that it can be, and that actually, you know, we can change the profession to suit them. We don't want them to change, we want the profession to change. And I think the profession is kind of, again, been taken backwards, and I think it all comes from that 2010 coalition government, to be honest, and the sort of Michael Gove changes, you know, in the curriculum, and the kind of, like, you know, returning to discipline, you know, those sort of 1950s discipline, you know. I think it's a problem.
Yeah, that's all fantastic. Mike, did you want to just jump in?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I was just basically just nodding and agreeing.
In agreement.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating hearing from you and talking with you on this show. And you did say something before, and of course your view is your view, but you know, around here we don't rule ourselves out of anything, and you've got a big opportunity coming up here, and you could be in this very high-ranking position within a matter of, I don't know, days, if a count takes place within a matter of days or weeks. And, you know, what would that mean to you if you were successful? Because you could be in the position where you've taken that role. And I really hope that for you. What would it mean for you personally?
Do you know, it would mean everything, actually. And what I've really loved, I've had a brilliant campaign team around me for this election.
Great.
And they kind of, you know, they contacted Pink News, and you saw, like, there was, I don't know if you saw, there was a signed letter from some of the drag race UK drag race stars.
Oh yes.
And again, like, some of my absolute like heroes and sheroes, and I use the word they-ros as well for the non-binary people, but some of the people who've been so inspirational to me have signed that letter. That like, I think that was really emotional, to be honest, to read that and to see the names of those people, because I think what was really emotional about it was because they know what it means to have somebody like me in that kind of position, because it hasn't happened, like not visibly, you know, not kind of in front of, you know, public and like being one of the faces of so many educators and teachers. And they also know, the people who sign that letter also know that it is the classroom where this kind of, I'm not going to call it a culture war, because it's not really a war, it's just like an onslaught, but that's being fought in schools over young people and around young people. You know, it's what they've always done. They did it with the gay community, didn't they? Like saying, oh, protect our children from gay people. You know, they did it with black people, and they used kind of children and women as this, you know, oh, we need to make sure they're safe. It's like, it's disgusting. You know, they've always done it. And now it's the turn of trans women. Not that those other, you know, it still continues with all of those other things, like, but, you know, I think having again, I want to be around the table with the people, you know, in the DFE and the EHRC and the government when they're sitting down, you know, and talking about their policies and what they're not doing. I want them to tell me what it means for a kid to be trans in a school, you know, because I know what it means for a kid to be trans in a school, you know, and I know how difficult it is for a kid to be trans. And that's, you know, again, like I think the Brianna Jai situation was just, and as soon as that happened, as soon as it came out that she was trans, everybody knew that it was a transphobic attack. There was no doubt it was a transphobic attack. And there was, I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of rhetoric saying, well, we don't know what's happened yet. We don't know if it's transphobic. And we're like, yes, we do. And of course, it transpired that transphobia after the trial, the transphobia was kind of central to that. But I actually went to a vigil in Birmingham when Brianna was murdered. And I spoke, and I was very angry and emotional. And afterwards, I had two trans boys came and spoke to me, and they'd both been in my classes in Key Stage 3. I wouldn't have recognised them because you know, they'd been on testosterone and they were adults now, and they didn't want to dead name themselves. But I was like, I think I do remember one of their names. But they, you know, neither of them were in contact with their family.
Oh, wow.
And you know, so when we talk about, you know, how if a trans kid comes out to a teacher and said, look, sir, miss, I want to tell you something, I'm transgender, the idea that you should immediately be calling their parents, like ideally, yes, of course, because their parents are going to be in the best position to support them and help them. But if they're saying to you, don't tell my mum and dad, don't tell my mum and dad, please don't tell their mum and dad, because again, you know, what happened to these two, these were really, really brilliant kids. And when they transitioned, they, you know, they don't have family anymore. And I think, again, LGBT plus community people, we talk a lot about chosen family, you know, and people, again, like the kind of the society at large talks about family and the importance of family. Well, if your family completely rejects you, which is common, you need something more than that. And yeah, I think when the people who've signed that letter, when they think about their experience of school and how school was for them as queer children and how it's kind of impacted them, and for them to kind of recognize the importance and the value of having somebody like me in that role, it kind of that's what gives me the pride. I think it gives me the pride, and it gives me the kind of motivation and the energy to go, right, you know, this is important, and you know, I've got a job to do.
I hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind of poignant talking about the vigil in Birmingham, and the importance. I've been thinking about this for a long time throughout this conversation, the importance of young people having somebody they can speak to about whatever it is they need to express. Obviously, you've shared your view there, and obviously teachers have a safeguarding responsibility to
Absolutely,
pass
yeah,
on
yeah,
anything in line with their school's policies. I think we have to make sure we say that here.
yeah,
But I, not really so much of a but, and I do, it has impressed upon me, this conversation, how important it is for young people to have somebody that they can go and share what it is that they're experiencing with, a
yeah,
trusted person they can go and speak to. Yeah, really, really interesting. Also, something that comes back to me is, I can't remember the percentage that you said. I don't know if it was a percentage. I think you said it was a very small number, about 4. I think you said about 4 teachers that were in your network that trans teachers that are now, out of 20, I think you said, are now
yeah,
still in the profession.
yeah,
So just thinking about that percentage of what was 20 teachers some time ago, if there are teachers who are trans that feel that they would like to step up in their role within their school, what would
yeah,
you advise them? What would you say to them about taking that step from your experience, you know, your
yeah.
experiences within the NEU?
Yeah, I would say to join the NEU. I mean, I don't. There are other teaching unions, of course, but I don't. But I think the network that we have, the Trans and Non-Binary Educators Network, still There are many more than those 20 now, by the way. We have lots now, and a lot of young teachers are coming through. So there are more success stories, but it is still difficult. And again, there's still stories about how those, sometimes trainee teachers are being kind of, treated in their placement schools because of their transness and being told not to say they're trans. Don't talk about this. And again, that's the thing with gay teachers as well. Like as teachers, we're all allowed to kind of make a choice, about how much of our personal lives we let students know. Like the teacher who has a photo of their wedding, on their pinboard behind their desk. So the kids can go, "Oh, miss, is that your husband?" Or like, "Oh, sir, is that your wife?" And like, "Oh, yeah, they're my children." Well, if you're a gay teacher, that's not necessary unless you are openly gay to the kids, which you might not want to do, but then, then you wouldn't want that photo up. But also, it's just a thing that you can't necessarily do. And I think, again, like I know in my school, I talked, when I went back to my school and I said the kids are more challenging, actually what those kids like is authenticity. The kids in my school want authenticity because they will smell a fake a mile away, and they will take you down for it. If you think you're going to teach them by being fake, they will not have it. They won't tolerate it. So it is about authenticity. And when you can teach as your authentic self, that's when we make the biggest gains, really. That's when we do our job properly, isn't it? I think, however you choose to kind of let that authenticity be. And again, it's a personal choice. If someone wants to share personal details about themselves, we do. But also, it's fine for a teacher to say, that's none of your business. We're talking about algebra now. That's also fine. But that's an authenticity, again, about the educator.
Yeah, authenticity and boundaries, isn't it? Like, I think students definitely recognize boundaries, but they recognize when you're being real, and you can be both. You can put boundaries up and also be real, but you call it depending on how willing you are to share little facets of whom you are, pictures on the wall or wherever it is. You can absolutely do that. And I think it's down to the teacher. That's at the end of the day, it really is. It's down to us teachers to kind of really teach the children about, what we're willing to share and what we're not willing to share. And going back to your topic about LGBT plus teachers, trans teachers, it's the same thing. It's their right. It's nobody's right to demand anything of anyone in terms of the personal life, and nor should their gender or sexuality play any kind of role in how they are in the classroom. They are separate and should always be that one. Before we wrap up this really, really good conversation, I do want to ask one thing of you, Kacey, if that's all right. I just wanted to get a quick plug in again from our sponsors, Hatchet Learning in the AQA, hatchetlearning.com. It's a wonderful, wonderful website. It's got publishers, professional development books, resources, really great things to improve your professional development. So Hatchet, I beg your pardon, learning.com. And then, of course, we've got AQA, wonderful, wonderful exam board. If you go to and Google AQA, we work with the experts, you'll be able to find all kinds of resources that will help teachers feel supported and ready in the classroom, give them some training, guidance, tools, you name it, they'll be there. Now, Kacey, seeing obviously as you're waiting for your election, do you have a manifesto? Do you have a final word for our audience that you would love to leave us with? The floor is yours.
Thank you. I guess, like, if people wanted to read more about me and see more, they can go to kaceydegroot.org. So that's the website, the campaign website. Just like what I would say is my final word is engage with your union and kind of get involved. Don't let it be done to you. Become part of the people who fight for it, because I think as educators, what we've lost our kind of autonomy and our expertise. And I think your little advert for AQA is absolutely right. Teachers are the experts. So actually, the union is a place where we get back our kind of expertise and our power to use our expertise for the policy decisions and the kind of the way that we kind of shape the system. The only way really we can do that is through unions. So get involved.
Kacey, thank you ever so much. Thank you, and thank you, Jen, as well, for your wonderful questions in this interview. That concludes the Saturday show, or well, actually, it's not the Saturday for us; it's a Friday evening. But when you'll be watching this, it will be a Saturday show. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please do wish Kacey the best of luck with her campaign. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on various things, so do let us know in terms of the outcomes. Our next show will be in a fortnight's time, so me and Jen will be interviewing our guest, yet to be decided yet, but we'll have someone in there that will absolutely be engaging and forthright and erudite, just as Kacey has been this evening, shall I say, well, this afternoon. It's very confusing when you do a pre-recording. It's like, is it this evening? Record? I don't know. You'll get to see it anyway. Thank you so much, everyone, and I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused